welcome everybody. We're going to get things kick-started in just a few moments. I can see a lot of people dialing in already. So welcome Alicia, Daniela, Jerry, Laura, Melissa. Wow, awesome. And while we're dialing in, just for the fun of it, why don't you just go ahead and type in the chat window and just tell us where you're from. I'm going to start it off just verbally. I'm based in Vancouver. Faizal, whereabouts are you based out of today, my friend?
I'm in Vancouver as well.
Excellent.
And guess what, Jason? I'm in Vancouver too.
I love it. A little more exotic now. Elizabeth, welcome from Indianapolis. Exciting.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Where else are people from here? Feel free to type in the chat window. Oh, Calgary. Welcome.
Go Flames.
Winnipeg. I love it. Chilliwack. Very good. So beautiful downtown Port Perry, Ontario. Very cool.
Nice. Welcome.
Good North American representation. Nova Scotia, Airdrie. I love it. Wonderful, everybody. So why don't we kind of get things kicked off here? We're excited about today's presentation. In just a few moments, our speaker is going to be speaking on trends and benefits and rewards for 2022 and beyond. As always, my name is Jason Lindstrom. Co-hosting with me today is Jerry. And this is kind of a part of our interview series. And in summary, we're on a mission to help people leaders like the attendees on today's call build the best workplace cultures possible. And quick side note before I turn it over to Jerry for an introduction, I've actually had a chance to know Faizal for a number of years now, and he's just an amazing guy, super supportive, and a super intelligent thought leader in the space. And I'm really excited to hear his thoughts on today's topic. So yeah, Jerry, I'll turn it over to you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jason, and welcome everyone to Culture Builders. It seems like it's been a little while since we've all been together, so I'm excited today. So I'll do a little bit more of the formal introduction of my friend Faizal here. Faizal Mitha is the Chief Innovation Officer. I love the title, Faizal, for Hub International's Canadian Employee Benefits and Retirement Division. So, like, without making Faizal sound old, he's been in this space for a long time. He began his career as an underwriter, and then he joined the benefits consulting space with ES3 Advisory. And that's where I first came into contact with Faizal. Worked with him for years there. And then when ES3 was acquired by Hub, they made Faizal an integral part of the team, and he's now leading a team as Chief Innovation Officer. And I love this. They're reimagining the traditional employee benefits experience, which is awesome, Faizal. I'm right there along with you. For those entrepreneurs, Faizal's also a tech entrepreneur, and he founded one of Canada's fastest growing insurtech companies, utilizing AI and big data and doing all sorts of cool things over there. Like Jason, I've known and worked with Faizal for over 10 years now, and I can say firsthand that he's incredibly knowledgeable in this space. And he's definitely a culture builder too. That's why I think we connected early on, Faizal, that connection between culture and benefits. You helped us navigate the misalignment. So Faizal's he's got a very busy speaking schedule, so I can't say enough how pleased we are to have you join us today. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Faizal. Welcome to the Culture Builders webinar series.
Thank you so much, Jerry and Jason. I'm just going to share my slides and we'll get going.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Can everybody see okay, Jerry, Jason?
Looking good.
So thank you, everyone, for joining and spending your valuable time with us. So my intention today is to have everybody leaving with some really positive ROI from today's session. And I'm super excited to be here with Jason and Jerry, two people that I've worked with for a long time, and we're doing really great stuff in the HR space. So let's jump right into it. So what is our journey today? So, our journey today is really going to be starting with talking about the challenges in the status quo, because, data is coming in from us from all levels, showing that the current status quo, which probably many of you on the call are operating under with your benefits and rewards. It just isn't working from data that we're seeing. We're going to jump into the issues of the status quo to what are the steps that we're seeing around best practices for employers that are really driving high engagement plans. And then obviously we're going to talk about emerging trends. And this presentation is sort of meant to meet you wherever you are, right? And there's no sort of judgment. Everybody's sort of at a different starting point. But what I'm hoping for is getting a sense for wherever you are in the starting journey. We'll have some tips and tangible things for you to take away from today's session. So let me just jump right into it. So first of all, there's many HR leaders on the webinar today. So I just wanted to start out by saying a big thank you, because it is unbelievable what HR teams have had to deal with in 2020 and even now in 2021, and dealing with return to work and all the things that are coming. So it is unbelievable. And I'm not seeing enough sort of recognition out there for the HR teams that I've seen do amazing things over the course of the year, depending on sort of what type of industry that you've been in. It's regardless, it was across the board, everything from dealing with layoffs to remote work, transition completely, employee uncertainty, wage cuts and freezes. It's been unbelievable. And so big thank you to all the HR leaders on this call, and well-deserved recognition that I'm sure you need more of, right? So thanks, Jerry, for the applause there. So where are we going, right? From Q3 2021, 2022 and beyond, I mean, HR teams still have the same challenges that you dealt with in the past. And there's a whole new slate of challenges and opportunities in front of us, right? Managing return to work, vaccines, et cetera. Employee retention concerns, which I'm going to talk about a little bit as we go along. The competitive recruitment landscape, which is already starting to heat up. I'm already seeing activity. I mean, I'm sure you've all seen the Microsoft study that's talked about, 40% of employees, up to 40%, are looking to make a change, right? And I'm starting to see that activity heat up. At the same time, while all that is going on, we have the work-life blur and a whole slew of employees that have taken this time during the pandemic to really self-reflect and go YOLO now, to say, wait a minute, I don't want to come back to the old normal. I want a new normal, and I want you to accommodate my new normal. So these are the new set of tasks and challenges that the HR leaders will have to navigate. And what I'm hoping today is to give you some tools and strategies. So, one of the things I always like to start off in a presentation with is just with a real basic question around who provides your benefits. Now, normally I would do a poll everywhere, but just in the interest of time, just maybe have you reflect on that question, because when I ask this question to groups of HR leaders, finance leaders, just leaders of businesses as a whole, 80 to 85% of the participants will name their carrier. They'll say, oh, Sun Life or Canada Life or insert ABC Life here, right? But the one thing that we always want to sort of reframe is to talk about the benefits and rewards program that you offer. It's actually your program and your organization. So employees really look at it as a reflection of you. And it's really critical to sort of have that framing in mind as you go along. Like, it's like looking at a building. Like this building, for example, for those of you in Vancouver, is a famous building on West Georgia Street, built by, the architect was Arthur Erickson. So this is an Arthur Erickson building. But if you look at your benefits and rewards program as a building, sort of, have you allowed the general contractor, i.e. your vendors, to dictate what your building looks like? Or have you, as the architect, really built up something unique that really stands out? And I can't stress enough how important this is, especially for those mid-sized employers on the call that are competing with much larger organizations. It's really critical for you to sort of architect your plan and make it personalized to who you are as an organization, to really allow yourself to stand out in the talent wars that are coming for recruitment, but also in positioning your rewards for the employees that you have. So let's talk a little bit about sort of status quo and dissatisfaction. So these are some of the data that we pulled from the Sanofi survey in terms of, why are plan sponsors, i.e. employers, dissatisfied with their programs today? And some of the things you'll see come up, obviously cost, inadequate value, negative feedback from plan members, right? So this is sort of leaning to the fact that we talked about earlier, where there are some challenges with the status quo, and we are starting to see that in the data. So this particular data comes from employers themselves, but what about the employees? So the employee data, we actually pulled this from Sun Life. And it's really nice in that it segments it by demographic. So what are some of the things that employees are looking for in terms of a benefits plan for themselves? And if you look at it across all the demographics, greater choice is really key. And this really comes part and parcel with some of the anecdotal data that we're picking up as well. Employees are definitely seeking a personalized experience, and greater choice is definitely a driver. So, if you're in a plan today, regardless of how many employees that you have, greater choice is definitely something you can look at with something as simple as a health spending account, or something as more evolved as sort of a cafeteria style flex plan. We talked about value. Value is also an issue across all demographics. Surprisingly, the Gen Zs didn't name value as an issue. But I think part of that is the Gen Z understanding of benefits. Because if you look at, the first point there, the Gen Zs want a plan that's more easy to understand. So anyways, there's dissatisfaction on the plan sponsor side. We know what employees are looking for. So what is a HR leadership team to do? So, one of the things that we're really at right now is sort of this experiential economy, right? I'm sure most of you on this call, your businesses have changed in the last couple of years, right? There's a real hyper focus on the customer, knowing your customer. What do we know about them? What can we do with that customer to give them that experience that creates loyalty and creates a raving fan going forward? The question that I would put forward is how many of our leaders actually look at our employees that way? How many of us really look at providing our employees with that experience and really having them be a raving fan, right? And how many of us really position our rewards in that manner for employees? So that's one of the things that I really want sort of to get across today, is really to almost to have HR take on a little bit of the lens of marketing, right? With your employees really being your customer and really building a customer-centric benefits and rewards program. How many of us are really there today, and what are some of the things that we can do to improve that? So really, what does that sort of high engagement benefits and rewards plan of the future really need? So the first part of it is, we all deal with the reality of financial constraints, right? We don't have blank checkbooks. We're not in that state where we were in the past, where the economy was booming, everybody was hunting for talent. What's happening right now is everyone's hunting for talent, but the economy is not booming. So we have to work with the financial constraints when we're building out something engaging and creative going forward for our employees. So what are some of the characteristics of sort of the good to great and the key characteristics that we've seen in the marketplace for high engagement plans? The first one is super important, which is, it starts with the Simon Sinek, know your why. What's the vision and purpose, right? I think that clarity of what it is that you're trying to accomplish and communicate to your employees, and having clear alignment across the board is absolutely critical, because everything else, cascades from that. The second aspect is making it meaningful. So we talked about sort of that consumer-centric approach to your employees, right? So really that HR with a marketing lens. So really looking at that marketing lens for both your current employee base as well as the prospective employees that you're looking to build in terms of your open positions, right? And really having a plan that's built around their needs. So, the question I always like to ask is sort of, if your product was your benefits and rewards program and your employees were the customers, would you have a profitable business with raving fans, right? I mean, that's a key question. And what would you do to make it a great organization and a great customer-centric group? On the personal side, it's really around giving employees that choice. And a lot of things that we're seeing with employers is the concept of mass customization, where they take personas of their employees and then design plans around those personas and really create the employee stories that they can relate to around their benefits plan. The next piece is really around, how well understood is it, right? One of the things that we've seen time and time again is that a good plan with great communication will always trump a great plan with poor communication, only 100% of the time, right? And the key thing there, and I say well understood versus well communicated, because information has to be delivered in the channel that they want to receive it, right? So it has to be multi-channel, and it has to have some KPIs around it, right? How many of us really have KPIs around employee engagement around their benefits and rewards? What's the point in having those components even in place if the employees don't understand it? I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. And then the second to last piece is sort of alignment internally. And I think it really starts with the executive team and really having the executive team well aligned on what that vision and purpose is, and sort of honing in on that. And then that follows to alignment externally. So, many of us, we don't operate on an island in HR, right? There's multiple vendors and multiple partners that we work with. The question is, how aligned are those vendors with the vision and purpose that we're trying to accomplish as an organization? Have that even been communicated to them? And if it has, are they executing on it? And what are the KPIs even to measure them, right? So these are some of the characteristics in terms of best practices that we're seeing for high engagement plans. So wanted to throw up a really quick example. I was on a panel discussion last week with a Canadian-based global tech company that really exemplified what this alignment really could look like. So in their particular case, their vision was really around building an inclusive workplace and having really meaningful DE&I that's strong and understood across the organization, right? So they were really, really well aligned at the EMT level of what they wanted to accomplish. And then what they did is they took a real data-driven approach to measuring what their definition was and how they were doing over time. They created alignment externally. They ended up bringing in new partners and reevaluated their vendor partners in multiple areas that really understood and were able to execute on that vision. And all along the way, as they went down the different areas, you can see there, apologies for the busy slide, is employees understood what they were doing because they were clear on the vision at the beginning. So when things like the vendor changed, pay equity conversations expanded, their communication materials came out looking different, and their benefits plan was revamped to celebrate diversity and choice, everything was within that same brand that they were trying to accomplish and within that same vision and purpose that they were trying to accomplish. I'll give you one other example, which I'm really impressed with, which is an organization in the financial services industry. So in that particular case, their vision and purpose was all around preparing for tomorrow and future-proofing their business and future-proofing their employees. So one of the things that they identified in that particular organization was that they had some serious skill gaps. So as they were planning out 3 years of where their organization needed to be, they recognized some serious skill gaps in areas like data science, data analytics, things like that. So this is where creative HR came into the mix with their executive team. And what they did is they actually had learning and development come together with rewards. And what they did is they offered a 3-to-1 incentive for employees that chose to take approved skills building courses, right? So a 3-to-1 means that, if there's a course that an employee is taking in data science that costs $3,000, they paid that employee $9,000 for taking it. So this was a really, really creative way for rewards and learning and development to come together, for the strategy of the organization to come together, and for employees to really be loyal to the organization that's future-proofing them as well as the organization going forward. So there's some really, really amazing work of creative HR practices that are happening all across North America. So let's talk about sort of that vision and purpose and sort of what aspects that you want your total rewards to hit. So, it's kind of like the Maslow pyramid, right? Where we start off on the physiological side. So many rewards and recognition programs, on the benefit side, they start off with the physiological, which is, do we cover off employees from healthcare catastrophes? So we cover them for prescription drugs, for dental, for hospital, et cetera. As we sort of go up, what do we want to do in terms of our vision around employee security needs? Do we offer them a pension or an RSP? Do we have sort of, obviously we have CPP and EI government programs, disability, life insurance, long-term disability, et cetera, all fall under the security element. What do we want to do on the belonging aspect of the spectrum? So that's sort of, bringing in employee wellness, employee perks and rewards, parental programs, career milestones, et cetera. The next part of that is fulfillment. So what are we doing on the fulfillment side on learning and development, on flexibility, on allowing employees to take sabbaticals, on tuition. So, the key part of it is when you're designing your strategy is to have your vision and understand what components that you really want to hit with your total reward strategy, and be clear about it, because you're not going to be able to be all things to all people, especially in a small to mid-sized area. You really have to niche and sort of, like I said earlier, build your building to stand out in downtown, wherever you are, and not just make it a ubiquitous glass building that everybody else is building, right? Communication and positioning is key, because one of the things that I see really well-meaning employers do is they basically throw, an employee starts with the organization and they throw a whole bunch of point solutions with them that have no integration with them whatsoever. And it leaves the employee already in an interesting state when they're starting an employer with information overload, dealing with all these different point solutions that are thrown at them. So my question to you is, do you sort of position your plan like this, where you sort of categorize, or do you position your plan like this, where welcome to the organization, here's your benefits and rewards program, good luck to you, right? So I think that's one of the keys, that it's all about positioning and communication, and positioning it in a way that your employees can actually understand and digest what you're offering to them. So let's jump into some specifics. So what are we seeing specifically in terms of some changes and some shifts in benefits plans? So the first one is, long-term disability pricing is coming under attack from multiple providers. So there's a pricing issue, but at the same time, there's also a coverage issue. In a vast majority of the plan audits that we do, there are neglected, I would say, long-term disability maximums and long-term disability schedules that have not kept up with salaries and the growth of the organization. And there's some real liability issues to that when it comes to employees not being adequately covered when they most need the protection. The protection is not there for them because the plan simply has been neglected for too long. So we've seen a huge uptake of employers going down that route. The second one is really, really critical as well, which is really understanding sort of the diverse needs of your employee base, right? And you are going to have people that are coming back to work that need support in childcare, in elder care, in different aspects of their life that are unique. You need to understand that uniqueness and offer them something to support them in that uniqueness. So the most common things that we've seen around this area are things like health spending accounts, but even more so lifestyle spending accounts that offer more flexibility and are able to cater to more employee needs. The third one is really challenging the status quo big time, which I'm really passionate about, as Jerry knows, because we've had a good run together, is unbundling and increasing psychology coverage. So whoever decided that it was a good idea for psychology to be bundled with massage therapy, physiotherapy, diet, like those are all great, right? But why would mental health ever be bundled there? It was bundled there because the insurers made it easy for them back in the day. We want to now say, wait a minute, mental health deserves to be its own category, and $500 for psychology coverage, which most employers in Canada still have, is completely inadequate, right? That covers off maybe 2, if not 3 sessions, right? Which can't resolve anything. So really, really important, if you haven't done so already, really, I would highly recommend unbundling psychology coverage from your paramedicals, providing a higher maximum, and provide something meaningful to employees who the data is showing us are struggling with mental health. And then last but not least, financial literacy. So one of the things that we saw in the initial parts of lockdown was when the markets crashed, there was a lot of anxiety, especially for employees that were getting close to that retirement age, around what does this mean for us? What does this mean for our retirement? And how many employers actually were able to offer counsel or coaching around financial literacy during that time? The ones that did, we've seen huge uptake in those programs. So especially if you have a group RSP or a pension in place, I would highly recommend sort of the one-on-one sessions, because there's only so much an employee is willing to share in a group setting. But in those one-on-one sessions, they provide a lot more insight, and you're able to provide a lot more guidance there. So those are sort of low-hanging fruit. The other evolving trends that we're seeing is investment in non-traditional mental health support, and then integrated virtual health. So let me just quickly jump into that. So the key thing I want you to notice with this slide is this was 2019 data, well before COVID. This is coming from Deloitte, talking about the cost of mental health in the workplace, but also the return on investment, right? So what it shows is that employers that were meaningful around investment in mental health programs actually performed better. They outperformed their peers that didn't take mental health seriously. So this is where sort of HR and finance can come together hand in hand, which doesn't normally happen, but this is an area where there is data to support that. So, you know, as sort of as COVID has come in and we've seen the mental health claims escalate, this data is only going to become more significant over time. So what are some of the things that we're seeing here, right? On the mental health support, we've talked about increasing psychology, unbundling it from traditional paramedicals already. You know, it's employee assistance programs. I want to talk a little bit about EAP here in a sec, because it has been sort of the traditional means to help support employees with mental health. But if you go back to what an employer has to do to create a high engagement plan, it's a well understood plan. So, you know, one example I can give you is, you know, we were going through an audit with an employer who talked about, you know, mental health as a checkbox. Oh yeah, we have an EAP. Let's check that off and move on. Oh, and I was like, no, before we move on, let me ask you a quick question. What's the utilization on your employee assistance program? Oh, it was about 4%. Oh, what was it last year? About the same, about 4%. Okay, so we're seeing an increase in data showing that employees are suffering from mental health from your drug data. You're seeing greater absence around mental health. And you're saying you're doing enough for your employees with the EAP, and you've checked the box with 4% utilization that's been flat. That to me is not really offering, you know, that's checking a box. That's not really offering something meaningful. And that's not really giving employees the support that they need, right? So it goes back to sort of a well understood plan. I'm not saying anything negative about EAP. I just think it needs to be communicated better and have greater engagement. Other programs that we've seen, you know, stress management. There's a study, I won't have time to jump on it today. Mindfulness programs, huge uptake in mindfulness, right? So not just for employees, but also for managers themselves, because managers are now dealing with a greater stress level amongst their employee base. And they need to have the tools personally to be able to manage what's coming in at them, and how many employers are actually supporting them in that area. I mentioned some of the areas that sort of outside the box, mental health, as well as virtual care, expanding beyond just a physician visit, which many of you have incorporated since COVID. One of the areas that we're seeing a lot of uptake on is internet-based cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Where what we're finding is that, you know, employees that require mental health support want to have support 24/7. They don't want to have to call into a triage line and then wait 5 business days to see a counselor. They want to have something where they can, you know, if it's 2 a.m., they can't sleep. They want to get immediate sort of immediate programs and exercises that they can work through. And this is where ICBT comes in. We've seen companies add this program both on an individual standalone basis, as well as bundled into their paramedicals along with their psychology. We're also seeing sort of virtual health expand, right? So virtual health became the norm since COVID, where people would go in and have their doctor visit, and it's great, right? You can see a doctor immediately, you can get your prescriptions quicker. But what we're seeing over time now is that ecosystem is now evolving very fast to basically being a one front door in for employees to get services, and they're concierge or guided to the right place and the right service within their plan at the right time. So this is really going back to what I talked about earlier, which is a consumer-centric approach to delivering services. So we're seeing really, really good things emerge from the virtual health space. So I'm running out of time here. So let me just jump through on the manager side. As I mentioned, you know, manager training is really critical because managers are dealing with an unprecedented amount of issues from employees. And the question is, are we giving them the tools and resources to be able to flourish in that environment that they're in? So one of the things that we're seeing a lot, we were seeing this well before, you know, 2020, which was emotional intelligence training for managers, right? It's really giving managers those tools to understand themselves in order to understand the employees that they work with. There's some free training there. It's the longest URL ever, but it's really valuable. It's workplacestrategiesformentalhealth.com. So I would highly recommend you check that out. There's some free tools and resources and an assessment as well. I was shocked because I thought my emotional intelligence was through the roof until I did the assessment, and I was like, whoa, there's some serious blind spots here, which was awesome because I got some tools to work through. So through a whole bunch of content at you, for the last bit, I just wanted to quickly fly by and show you some, innovative benefits and rewards that employers are putting out there based on their vision, right? So things that we're seeing, mortgage subsidies, personalized medication, precision medication based on their genetics. Tuition reimbursement is really making a comeback, if for those of you that haven't had it already. Once things come back, encouraging sort of community and physical activity with funding sports programs. Obviously, telemedicine became a trend, so that's no longer a new thing. Offering mental health days and being, for those that were offering it, in providing more mental health days to account for the things that employees have to deal with. Huge jump in philanthropy, right? And not just corporate programs where the corporation decides what's important to them. This is really going down to the employee level to understand what's meaningful to them and offering some matching around that. Fitness, right? So a lot of organizations that were offering sort of group fitness in-house shifted to virtual, right? So how can we help? Because a key part about keeping your mentally well is also getting physically well, right? So what is the organization doing to sponsor that? Meals will come back once we're back in the office again, but that was already a big jump. Pet insurance. Jerry likes that one. Recognizing employees where they are. So when travel becomes again, Milk Stork was a fantastic a benefit for working mothers. Legal benefits, transportation, auto, vacation buy sells, home insurance, vacation funds. I'm not saying this because Jason's on the call, but meaningful rewards and recognition is absolutely critical. And what the work that Bucket List is doing is phenomenal. And it is definitely a trend that we're seeing. Life events, right? As employees, they get married, they have various life events, having some contribution towards that. Once again, making it personalized, making it meaningful, making it consumer centric, right? That you can see the themes playing out. Employee referral programs are going to be huge. Because we have such a talent issue coming up, you have a great group of referrals that are in your offices today. So incentivize them, promote it, and get them going out there to bring in more people like them into your organization. So with that, I'm gonna shut up because I've talked a lot. But our journey today, we covered a lot of ground: challenges to status quo, building a high engagement plan. What are the emerging trends? And really, I want to make this more about you now. So happy to answer any questions.
Faizal, that was awesome, sir. We got a ton of audience questions, some through the chat window, some through the QA. And maybe we can start off there.
Thank you so much, Faizal. We had one person say, could you get Faizal to talk faster, please? So, love the energy, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And Teresa said, excellent information. Thank you so much. And I know we're going to get a bunch more of those, but why don't we jump into some of the audience questions now? So sure. The first question was from Amelia Smith. Thank you so much. She was asking, what is a KPI and what are some good KPIs for a benefits program?
It's a great question. So KPIs could be around usage, right? In terms of, like I mentioned, the EAP conversation, right? If you're running at a 4%, definitely have a KPI of the industry standard, for example, is 7, but you want to obviously hit higher than that, and then get your vendors involved to say, okay, what can we do collectively to get our utilization up? That's one aspect. The second aspect of KPIs is around employee engagement around the benefits plan. How well do they understand it? How much does it really relate to what their needs are? So one of the things I always like to encourage there is to have surveying over time, where you're sort of measuring the delta in your engagement scores around benefits. And really have meaningful questions around benefits, because generalist engagement surveys, I find, they really skip over the meat of benefits and yeah.
Yeah. I like that, Faizal. More than just the one question, I am, on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfied are you with your benefits program? Yeah.
Exactly.
Get deeper. Love it.
Awesome. So second question is from Bob Carter, and I'm just going to kind of read it verbatim. So please comment on the need for long-term rate stability and the apparent race to the bottom with deep discounts and long-term rate guarantees, which only end up hurting the industry and all stakeholders.
Yeah. I mean, that's been an issue in the benefit space for a long time, right? Like um, every HR person on the call gets those calls to say, hey, I can save you 15% in your benefits, right? Because that's sort of what the industry has been, historically done in the past. And sure, anybody can save 15% tomorrow, but the issue is what does it happen to the sustainability? So in that race to the bottom, yeah, it's created a bit of this musical chairs almost, where employers are sort of forced to shop the market every 3 to 4 years, because once their rate guarantees are up and they see double-digit increases, they move around, and moving around is not necessarily the best for employee engagement, because you now have to educate employees. It creates disruption for them. So trying to find stability is actually key. So that's a great question, Bob, and the industry has a lot of work to do in that space.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that context, Faisal. The next question was from Chad Winters, and he asked, where does recognition fall into the pyramid? And also, what type of programs have the best ROI? And there's what benchmarking results are there out there for recognition programs? And I'm actually, I would love to hear your answer, but I might be able to lend a bit of assistance on this one as well.
Yeah, actually, so let me go back to that slide. Actually, Jason, why don't you start? I'm going to go back to that slide on the pyramid, and I'll let you start.
So I'll speak broadly and then really specifically. So with employee rewards and recognition, what it's actually tapping into is kind of the physiological and psychological safety. So the rewards are really cool. Experiential rewards can be powerful, but the bulk of the recognition program is actually the act of recognition, being told you're valued and appreciated. Like at the end of the day, everybody, whether you're a toddler or a CEO, wants to know they're appreciated inside of an organization. And then the rewards are just a great way to personalize and make that program extra meaningful. But super tactically, an effective recognition program, it can lower voluntary turnover by more than 40%. It can increase employee engagement by more than 25%. It can have a huge ROI to a company's bottom line. So there's a bunch of key metrics that you can actually improve inside your organization. And it definitely, my 2 cents, it impacts the kind of actually many layers of this whole pyramid, but definitely the bottom 2, and it can tap into some of the other layers as well. So, but that's my 2 cents. I'd love to get Faizal's thoughts and feedback too.
Yeah, so I would say the ROI is really determinant on the vision and purpose and how aligned everything is, right? So the global tech company that I talked about, where DE&I was really something that they wanted to drive, and we drove that into the benefits design. Well, their engagement and the rewards design, the ROI was through the roof, but it wasn't because of the independent point solution of the rewards and recognition program. It was that it encapsulated everything else that they were trying to do as an employer. So I think that's really key. The same thing with that other organization on the learning and development side. On the benchmarking side, there's a ton of salary surveys that incorporate rewards, and then there's also benefits benchmarking data that's starting to incorporate rewards. So we use cloud advisors, for example. So there's a ton of data out there. I'm happy to connect afterwards as well to give you specifics.
Awesome. And I see a bunch of people asking for a copy of the deck recording of this presentation. Of note, this is being recorded. We'll share the recording with everybody after today's call as well. So I know there's lots of good takeaways, so everybody will be equipped to implement some good takeaways. Next question, and this one's from Pam Walsh. Will all benefit providers now be unbundling? And is typically coverage is lumped into package or tiers?
Great. Yeah, and when I say unbundling, it doesn't have to be anything significant in terms of your plan structure change. All plan bundling can mean is sort of taking psychology as its own meaningful maximum, still keeping it within paramedicals, but bundling it as a separate maximum. But even more importantly than that, bundling it in the eyes of the employee, so that it's actually set up separately as a mental health support infrastructure of benefits that could include psychology, that can include EAP. So the positioning, unbundling the positioning is really key. It goes back to the consumer-centric approach and unbundling that way.
Awesome. Thanks. And then a question from Vanessa Volmer. Can you please share more about programs regarding education, educational reimbursements, student loan repayment programs? And from my, even in the recognition and reward space, this is coming up more and more. Definitely a hot theme or topic. But yeah, Faizal, it'd be good to get your insights and experiences around that.
Yeah, I mean, so it really goes down to sort of meeting employees where they are, right? So the learning and development programs, you could look at it two ways, right? There's the employers that look at it as sort of a general reward for employees to allow them to learn wherever they want, right? And just open that up. And we've seen some companies have actually gone to unlimited. It's kind of like the Richard Branson unlimited vacation. No one actually pushes it, but it's a nice recruitment tool for them. And then others have taken the approach, like I mentioned, with that financial services company, where they've done a strategic training and development aspect of it, right? So it depends on which angle that you want to go, but it's really offering employees either a straight reimbursement or a portion of reimbursement for them to continue on their continuing learning journey. And another thing that we're seeing in terms of meeting employees where they are on the tuition side is actually, rather than having a traditional group RSP program where, you know, a 20 something or early 30 something employee that's still paying student debt couldn't care less about saving for retirement. What we're seeing is that the employer match component actually goes into student loan reimbursement, right? So it's really sort of meeting employees where they are and giving them something meaningful, and not just painting them with a blanket to say, oh, here's your RSP, you know, this is important to us.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. And thank you to the audience. Great questions, by the way. There's tons of engagement.
Keeping me on my toes.
Yeah, right.
Making my job super easy.
well, so far, Jerry. But I think there's a couple more questions. And Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you had a question from your point of view as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, in preparing for this, and we talked about how sometimes there's this misalignment between the culture building work that all our audience is very much engaged in and benefits programs. And so we want to get, I want maybe you to comment on what are some suggestions you have for all the people and culture leaders on the call for how to get executives engaged in this conversation that benefits is a big part of the culture work that we have to do.
I think it's almost the other way around, Jerry, in that once there's some clear executive sort of buy-in in terms of where the direction is, then how do you translate that direction into and cascade it into your HR practices, into your total comp, into your benefits and rewards? So I think it's more so the other way around almost, right? Where you're taking your strategy and you're translating it on the HR team, and you're translating that into the benefits and rewards side. And it all goes back to this concept that I'm seeing of the HR person becoming a marketing person as well, an internal marketing person, and having that internal marketing lens. There's a real push towards that, and there's a real I've seen things get over the line that wouldn't have got over the line otherwise without that marketing lens.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen such a shift to, you know, on executive teams of the people and culture leader being the one that the CEO turned to for the last year and went, help us through this. Like, how the heck are we going to get through this next 6 months? And so we've got an opportunity now with them being so elevated in the organization and being seen as really, you know, key contributors. I love the way you twisted that question. That answer. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're right. That's the one real positive that I found did come out of the last year and a bit, is that you're right. All over different industries, all over sizes, that VP HR, CHRO, director of HR got elevated in the boardroom, as they should have been all along.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that is here to stay, because that is just such a critical part of the business strategy going forward.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. And I also appreciate, we're kind of coming up to roughly our regularly scheduled wrap time. But Jerry, I wanted to, and Faizal, you certainly answered all my questions, but Jerry, I definitely wanted to give you a chance to ask some questions that you might have before we kind of move.
Well, I'm conscious of time, but maybe we could sneak one more in. We always love to get super tactical on these calls and give people really tactical things they can go away with. there's been lots of talk, as there should be, about the shift from, core benefits. Do we have our extended health coverage and our paramedical things to mental health and wellness, so that people aren't just thinking about waiting till the renewal period to do something about this? Can you give a couple of examples from employers, of some things that people can do immediately to not only signal that they care about this, but actually to do something that shows they care?
Yeah, I would say, it goes back to sort of dealing with the consumer. What is the consumer saying, right? So what if you're doing surveys, great. What is that survey data telling you? If you're not, I would encourage you to start. That the second part of that is know your data, right? I find that like the benefits renewal and the benefits sort of quarterly updates or whatever you get from your existing vendor, those are critical, not just from an insurance pricing standpoint. To me, they're actually critical in terms of giving you a snapshot of organizational health, right? What are the trends in your employees in the drug coverage, and what are you seeing for absences? What is sort of the data whispering to you that your employees are looking for? And then how do you take that data to then drive your plan design decisions going forward, and not just making them a flavor of the month and throwing something at them that the data is showing you that doesn't really align. The second part of that is also knowing your data from your consumer standpoint, i.e. your employees. So as I mentioned, there's a ton of work being done on persona analysis, right? And getting a sense for the different personas that exist in organizations, and what is the data telling us these personas generally gravitate to, and how is our plan dealing with that spectrum, right? Because we have so many generations in the workplace.
Thanks for that. You just brought me right back to a meeting room sitting across a table from you, and you remind me that our quarterly check-ins are so important. Thanks for that, man.
Hopefully pleasant memories, Gary.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah.
Perfect.
Wonderful, sir. Well, I think we might kind of start moving to wrap, and I'm going to briefly share my screen just with some final notes and takeaways. We have a couple of goodies and a couple of offers for everybody who attended today's call. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen very briefly.